All right, here we go. We got a question to answer today. And the question that I'm trying to get to the bottom of is, what's the correct prep step timing in terms of just hitting the slot? What gives us the most forgiveness? And it's very dependent on ball flight, pace, direction, and then also the player's reaction time. So to say that there's a perfect prep step timing for a given play, that's true for a given player, but we don't know what's coming. We don't know what direction the ball's going to get hit. We don't know how hard. So what gives us the most forgiveness in terms of our landing on our prep step? And we know that landing too early, landing at contact, doesn't allow us to read the flight. And we're grounded, and then we have to reshift our feet, and we know that's not very quick. But we also know, our intuition tells us that if we land too late, there's chances we can't get to some balls that maybe we could have had we done it the other way. So what is that? I want to put a numerical value to it. What is that slot? And I would argue that it's probably different for lots of different players based on their reaction time and stuff like that. But if we're going to take the average reaction time for, we'll call it a college age male, we've got that at a 0.232 of a second, which is pretty quick. And so that we're going to give that as our slot from contact. We've got 0.232 for the average player. How far after that do we need to be landing to allow us to have the most forgiveness with our prep step? And it might be 0.233, but I don't know. I want to look into this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the entire data set from, let's go Lindor. We'll take Lindor's data set from last year. We'll put it on a graph. We'll use video scouting to kind of identify angles, how far away from his eye line things are. So for example, what you see on the screen here is, this is how Baseball Savant uses their defensive positioning to allow people to evaluate where guys are setting up most often. And so essentially the field's split up in a 90-degree angle, and then starting from the midline at second base, that's 0, and then you've got negative 45, positive 45. For us, we're going to take that same concept, but the 0 line is going to be the eye line of the defender, which we don't have that data for everything, but we can get pretty close. So we're going to take the eye line of the defender, whether or not they're in like pull side stakes or not, maybe they're cut, maybe the infield's in, whatever it is, and we're going to take the angle based off that. So I think I found a decent way to do the video scouting. It's definitely going to have some human error there, but when you're looking at videos on Baseball Savant, and we have the data for everything that was hit in the direction of the shortstop last season, whether it was a hit, an error, whatever, we can see essentially the direction that the player is moving. We can see partially where they're set up because the camera swings so quick. So my plan is to take essentially just a copy and paste field and add a pinpoint to where the expected start position of the player is, because we don't have access to that data as regular fans. So you add a pinpoint to where he's at, and then wherever the ball's landing or the ball is about to land, we'll be able to put a dot there. So essentially you're trying to track direction, and so let's say the ball is hit like slightly to the right of the defender. I'd put a dot on the field there, and then from home plate I'd make a straight line on each dot and then measure with a protractor the angle away. This might be too much, but we're gonna try it. We're gonna see how it goes. All right, so this is working well. This is working a charm. So essentially I've portioned off our angles into 3 segments. The first segment is right at the defender, which essentially I've got 2 degrees away from the start position and negative 2 degrees away from the start position. Any balls hit within that space, we'll call that right at the defender. And then from 3 degrees to 5 degrees, we've got like middle right, and then -3, -5, middle left, and then extreme right, extreme left after that. So it's working pretty well. It's working pretty well. And so I've sorted all the plays by launch angle, and then taken the direction, and then also matched with the direction, the exit velo. Essentially, you get pages of stuff that looks like this, and it looks really messy and not super professional, but to be honest with you, it's come out pretty nice. So my next plan is I'm just gonna try to put this in a graph that's semi-palatable and doesn't confuse me too much, and we're gonna see how it goes, see if we can find any trends or see if we can find some concept of like the most commonly launched angles, I guess is the way to put it, and then also how that also plays in conjunction with the exit velo, because keep in mind, like, the harder a ball's hit at a more dramatic angle, the sooner we'll see it. Now, we don't have as much time to catch it, but the sooner we'll see that, so our timing can be quicker there too. So just something to think about. All right, so if we weren't already down the rabbit hole, we are fully in the rabbit hole right now. I think it's really cool stuff. Like what we've made here is pretty awesome, but it might be too involved. That's okay, let's play with it anyway. So what we've got here is essentially the ball and flight data, and also the angle data in terms of launch direction for Lindor in 2023. And essentially it turns into a heat map. So we've got launch angle on the y-axis on the left. The x-axis, I wouldn't think of it so much as like a traditional x-axis. Think of it as more of like a grouping, and those are grouped by launch direction. So on the left, you've got greater than or equal to 6 degrees. So from Lindor's visual, wherever he's setting up, these would be like extreme changes in visual to ball flight to the left. And then we've got in the middle 3 to 5 degrees away, and then dead on is at -2 to +2. We can see that there's a lot more balls hitting that spacing, which speaks to the like talent that these guys have in terms of positioning. And then vice versa, you've got -3 to -5, and then less than or equal to -6. So anything that's like hard right. So that would be hard right there. But we're noticing some cool things. First of all, like we can see that like most of the balls that are playable for the shortstop are hit at negative angles. Like they're being hit down. Even anything up to like 5 degrees in theory is hitting down. That 0 line is not parallel with the eye line. That 0 line is going to be parallel with the ground. So we're still seeing, roughly down angle. Now, the closer we get to the eye line, the longer we have to watch it, especially if the ball's hit with pace, to see it like drop. So our prep step timing has to be later. And so I think what was really cool about what ended up happening here is I knew exit velo had to be a factor because, for example, let's say a ball gets hit to the left and you have to range hard to your left, but the ball is hit really hard. You're going to see that sooner than a ball that's hit weak to the left. Marginally sooner, but you're going to see it sooner, so the timing should change. Now you have less of a chance of catching it because it's hit extreme left and hard, but you see that sooner than a ball that's hit, at like 60 mile an hour to the left. It's going to get out of the path of the visual slower. So the dots are structured based on exit velo. So the red dots are anything 90 and above. The green dots are anything from 75 to 89.9. And then, no, actually the blue dots. Blue dots are 75 to 89.9. And then the green dots are 75 or 74.99 and below, which is really cool because what ends up happening is you can start seeing trends with like hard hit balls and stuff. And you can see like most of the hard hit balls, red dots, are grouping around that 0 line, which tracks. And then there's kind of like outlier sections too. So like on that mid right, and this data set isn't huge, it's big, but it's not huge. But that mid right grouping of red dots, we can see that like those angles start to get steeper, and those are like pull side rollovers that were hit really hard, that are playable. And I think you'll start to see too, like in terms of blue dots, you don't see a ton of blue dots above the kind of 0 line, the horizon line, and you see a decent amount of red dots. And again, that exponentially grows as you get deeper because that's where the misses are. That's where we have the most chances to make plays. But that should reflect in our prep step timing. So maybe we think about the angle that these things are being hit at. And again, the steeper the angle, the sooner we see it. So the steeper that angle is, the sooner we see the ball flight, the sooner we can react. The more eye level that flight is, the more away or the more close to our vision in terms of like left and right that ball is, the later we need to be moving, in theory, because we haven't seen the true flight yet. So, okay, so when it comes to applying a number to the correct slot for the timing, we want to think about getting to the spot, because that's how we evaluate catch probability too. We're assuming that if we get to the spot, that the probability of making the catch is higher, which is a fair assumption to make. So how do we best get to the spot of the ball? How do we best get to the ball on time? No, not on time. How do we best get to the spot of the ball soonest? Yes. So when we look at the data on the graph, we're seeing that most balls are hit right at us. with that in mind, then we look at the extremes where we're also getting most balls that are right at us in terms of that angle that those are the most kinds of balls that we have to track backwards for. It's not the only balls, but we see most of the balls that we have to track backwards for in that angle. But we can see height and low sooner than like level with our eyes, so we shouldn't have too bad of a jump there. But again, you're playing for forgiveness with your prep step timing because we don't know what's coming. So we can anticipate, I guess there's two ways to go about it. You can anticipate the most likely ball that's hit, which is right at us, in which case our prep step timing can be super late. Or we can anticipate for the most likely extreme balls that are hit, which would be sooner, because those would be to our right and left, and we'd have to range for those. Those would create the need for quicker timing. Which would then give us incentive to land slightly sooner than a ball that would be maybe kind of trickier to see in terms of flight. And I guess if the ball's hit right at us anyway, and we have that really soon timing, and we haven't seen flight yet, that landing square isn't a killer because the ball's hit right at us. We're already in the position of the flight of the ball. Yeah. So our timing needs to play for the likely flight of a ball that we have to range for. That's what I'm going to go with. That's my definition. So we need to find the numerical value that best fits the flight for a ball that we have to range for in terms of our timing. Okay, there we go. We're going to do that. Okay. All right. We may have done the impossible. Not the impossible. The not so likely. So it looks like we're able to put a numerical value to Lindor's, because we have his data set. That's the data we're using. Lindor's prep step timing in terms of like the most ideal slot that he could hit to give himself the most forgiveness and the most range. And it looks like it's 0.270 to a 0.310. And remember, he's probably clocking the direction sooner than that. But the land, to be able to register, get your body maneuvered in the right position to be able to fire off, it looks like initiating ground contact anywhere between that 0.270 and a 0.310 plays best for him. And from the video you can see on screen, I'll upload the actual play, and then I'll upload the 3D visual behind it. So it's kind of a bummer. We don't have the 3D visual for plays in 2023. So what I've done is I've pulled a play from 2024 and used the 3D data from that to see his current timing, and then match different plays to see, like, okay, was he optimizing his timing here? Did it look like he was stagnant? Did he have a great jump to this? And I think it's also important to note too, like, not just Lindor, I would say the majority of major league infielders are anticipating and creating some sort of like momentum in a certain direction in the hopes that a ball is hit that way. Now, they're not selling out, they're not turning their hips and firing off. And you can even see from this video, like from the 3D version for sure, you can see that he kind of works lateral first. Like, he's already working to his left when this ball is being hit. Now, that being said, like, the landing and the timing of the prep step is near impeccable. Like, that's exactly what we're looking for. We can see that the right foot lands first, fires into a left foot opening up into the direction that he needs to go to. And for that to happen for him, it looks like it needs to be somewhere between that 0.270 and the 0.310 slot. Anything before that, like I said, stagnant. Anything after that, he's probably not giving himself much of a shot to play, to make a play on the ball. So, all right, that was a lot. Maybe overkill, but it's fun. I learned a lot, and I definitely got to understand a little bit more about like ball flight, how it works with our eyes, what we can register, what we don't register as soon, and the impact of that based on different launch directions and different launch angles. So awesome. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and I might do something like this soon, maybe with base running. We'll see. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe. Don't forget to check out our new podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's called the Baseball Blueprint Podcast. And also, feel free to join our base stealing and infield communities on X as well.